Why, hello there, everyone. It's me, AnxiousCynic, and today you may be wondering what this is, what I brought to you, and what is up with that title, if I name it what I think I'm gonna name it. Alright, so you may be wondering why something like this is on a gaming channel, and well, I don't know. And I like to look up the news, pretty much like most anyone does, I guess. I like to look at the trending news on Facebook. I like to go on Reddit, and there's a lot of things that I find on there, and of course things that are going on in the world, major events, and then just everyday things, and I just have this urge to talk about them. And I've always had the idea, if you watch my channel, then you've seen some of my attempts at doing things like Cynic's Log and the philosophy videos and whatnot, but it's just really difficult for me to keep something like that going. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but I still, amidst all of this starting and stopping and procrastination, have this desire to just share things and talk about things and share my opinion. And I don't know if there's much of a reason for that. I don't know if there's really a need to have someone else spouting off of the mouth, talking about their little feelings about things and their thoughts, especially when there's already so many other people doing it. So I do have that apprehension about doing something like this. Like, I feel like maybe my opinion isn't necessary, even if it mattered somehow. Like, it just isn't necessary because there's so many people who are much more competent and eloquent in their speech and their research than I am, where I would much rather just kind of talk opinion-based instead of doing really in-depth research and trying to make solid points and whatnot, because honestly, I feel like that's good. There's nothing wrong with it, and if I'm watching someone or listening to someone, then I would like them to be informed. I want to hear the facts. So there again, why would you want to listen to someone who's just going to kind of give their opinion, their commentary, as you may call it? I don't know what I'm saying. I got lost on the words there. So, what does that person have to offer? But nonetheless, the itch is there, and this is me trying to scratch it. All right? So that's kind of the first topic that I wanted to go over today that's been on my mind, is the motivation to do something. Motivation. What is my motivation for doing this? Sitting here talking about things, and I don't know if anyone even cares. Well, it's because I wanted to. And I feel like I've seen, if you go, especially, all right, let me catch my breath here. If you go on to Reddit, and there's a Let's Play subreddit, and a lot of people go on there and they talk about motivation and having a hard time continuing with their channel because, as we all know, the Let's Play, genre on YouTube is so oversaturated. It is just incredibly oversaturated. Everybody, and even their grandmas, like there are literally old ladies who make Let's Plays, they're all doing it. And if you're doing it with the hope of getting an audience, of doing something that somehow stands out and having other people like, well, that's really good. I think I'd like to give it a try. And I'd like to get an audience. Like, you're probably not going to get a very big audience, and especially not in a short amount of time. So doing it for that purpose, I hope I didn't get off track here. I feel like I just completely forgot where I was coming from. But anyway, if you're doing it for that purpose, you're probably going to get burnt out and you're going to lose your motivation. And as with anything, like, I can't expect to do something like this and expect that a whole bunch of people are going to be interested in listening to it. I'm actually surprised if you're listening to this right now that you've actually made it this far, assuming you haven't just skipped through and heard this particular part or something. Anyway, so you kind of have to realize that if you're doing something, you're doing it for yourself. And why you would create content to share with the world for yourself, I don't know. That's kind of an odd juxtaposition of reasoning there. It's like, I'm doing it for myself, but I'm putting it out there because I want other people to see it. And you're supposed to not get discouraged when no one else wants to see it. That's so weird. But that's the truth. I mean, if you're going to do something, whether it's Let's Plays or a podcast type sort of thing like what I'm doing right now, or just even like if you want to make anything, a blog, you want to shoot short films or machinima or Minecraft animations, you can't do it because you're hoping to get some huge audience. Like you're even if you did, that's not enough to keep you motivated. You have to find out why you want to do it. What is it that makes you want to do those things? And that has to kind of become your reasoning for doing it. You can't rely on other people to lift you up and hold you up and motivate you all the time, because especially when you're starting out, those people aren't going to be there. You have to find the reason that you want to do it and do it for that reason. And if that reason is to get an audience and stuff, maybe that's fine. I mean, that's great if that's what motivates you. But if that is what motivates you and you don't get an audience, then you may not be very well lasting long. All right? That came out perfectly. That's exactly how I meant to word that. So that's basically what I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of explain why I'm doing this right now, why this is in existence right now, and also kind of touch on something that I've been thinking about with a lot of people who get into something. And I mean, I understand. I've been doing this a little while and I don't have nearly as much following as I would like, or even what I might have expected when I started. But the fact remains that I enjoy doing it, and that's why I continue to do it. Now, I've gone through a lot of different shifts and a lot of changes in the time that I've done it, but I still enjoy it and I still do it, and that's what motivates me. I just enjoy doing it, and putting it up on the internet. It's cool, it's fun, and it's nice to get feedback and things like that, but at the end of the day, what I really enjoy is just doing it. And I think that's kind of where you need to be before you start anything, because, as I said, probably more than once already, you're not going to be able to rely on other people to be there to justify what you're doing. You got to have your own reasons. You got to be motivated for your own sake or something. You got to have some kind of goal in mind for yourself that's, I mean, it doesn't mean you'll always do it. Even if you do Let's Plays and your goal, like for me, one of the big reasons I started Let's Plays is because I have anxiety issues and I wanted to try and use this medium to help overcome it. And it has helped me a lot, not as much as I would have liked, or not in all the ways I would have liked, but it has helped me improve on a lot of things. And if I didn't enjoy it, then I probably would have given up by now, because I was like, well, it's helped me in a lot of ways and I'm done. Like, I feel like I've exhausted my resources of what it has to offer. And there's really nothing left. I haven't gotten an audience, so I did what I set out to accomplish, and now it's time to move on to something else. But through doing it, I realized how much I enjoyed doing it, and it does still provide some level of self-improvement as I continue, and that's why I continue to do it, in case you weren't sure where I was going with that. So that's what I wanted to say. I don't know if anyone who needs to hear that will hear this, but if you're having trouble with motivation, make sure that what you're trying to do is something that you really want to do. Because if you're doing something and you don't feel motivated to do it, maybe, just maybe, you don't really want to do it. And there's something about it that attracts you to it. And maybe there's another hobby or whatever it is that you're doing that would actually scratch that itch better. Or maybe you do enjoy doing what you're doing, and the reason you're not motivated, the reason you're losing faith and getting bogged down in things, is because the reason you are doing it isn't what really motivates you to do it. You need to find out what that is, focus on that, and enjoy what it is you do, and justify the time that you spend on it, because otherwise it's just a waste of time. You're just an exercise in futility. Or something. Now, that's a phrase you're going to hear me say a lot, by the way, or something. I don't know why it's a bad habit. Maybe this will help me to correct that issue as well. Or something. So, on to our next topic today, which is kind of odd. This, I guess, is going to be kind of all over the place, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. What I want to talk about is I watch a YouTube channel. Well, quite a few, but one of them I watch is the Hodge Twins. Well, they have like 5 different channels, but I watch them, and stuff, and they recently announced that they have gone vegetarian. Now, obviously, I'm not the first person to talk about this, and I'm sure other people have discussed it at length and rebutted it or whatever you want to call it, but it got me thinking, like, the whole issue of veganism and vegetarianism and all these things have been kind of like a topic of discussion for myself and friends and things. And this event kind of revived my interest in the topic, and I decided to look into things a bit more, and I just wanted to discuss some of my findings and my thoughts, because I feel like I've gotten to the point where maybe I have a little bit of a solid opinion on it that's just not simply like making fun of someone who decides to eat a certain way, if that makes sense. So, to preface this, my fiance, when I met her, she was a vegan at the time, and now she's gotten away from that, and she eats more of a typical diet, I guess you could say, but she still has a negative disposition towards meat. She doesn't really like it because it's gross and stuff. She gets kind of disturbed by it, but she still eats it. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is because that's kind of one of the things that makes the topic even more relevant to me, is because there's a little bit of a personal experience with it. So anyway, the Hodge Twins watched a video that came out by some activist group that went undercover in some pig factory thing, where they take the pigs and they kill them, which sounds awful, but apparently they were doing some horrible stuff. Now, I have yet to muster the stomach to watch the video, so bear with me here as I discuss this, but apparently, they weren't inoculating the pigs the way they should have and things like that. I read an article about it, okay? That's how I know supposedly what happened. And based on this video, the Hodge Twins were really disturbed, and it convinced them to go vegetarian, i.e. pescatarian or something like that, where they still eat fish, and as far as I know, they still eat or consume dairy, but they don't eat eggs, and they don't eat any kind of, I guess, mammal meat. So it's pretty interesting that they did that, though, because they've made videos before kind of poking fun at vegans. I don't think they necessarily really hated vegans or anything. They've always been kind of facetious and just kind of poke fun at things and speak their mind, and knowing that full well that their mind may change in the future. And I think that's kind of respectable about people like that, is that they speak their minds of what they feel at the time, and they're not above admitting later on down the road if they change their opinion. And unfortunately, that's not really a trait that many people respect anymore. Like, you kind of have to be on one side, especially the right side, and the right side is whoever criticizes you agrees with, and stay there. There's no room for switching and flipping and flopping as you age and learn new things. But that's neither here nor there. Sorry for that dissertation. Anyway, so their announcement kind of revived my interest in it, and I wanted to look into it because I've heard so many different things, and I wanted to try to get a full grasp of the situation, because it is a very conflicting, a very self-reflecting thought to think about animals being brutally abused and or killed and used for human consumption. Especially, even if you weren't worried about that, there was some issues about them being sickly and things, and even if you're okay with eating meat, you may not want to eat diseased meat. And so that raises another question there. And a lot of people, especially vegans, find the answer to this great dilemma in life to be go vegan or vegetarian, eat only the vegetables and things, and then it's cruelty free and things, it's not gonna hurt anybody, and let the animals live and be treated well. One of the things a lot of people don't seem to bring to the discussion, though, is that plants are living things too. Now, I'm sure this has been addressed a lot, but as I said again, bear with me as I try to get to my point, please. I'm just trying to cover it all, you might say. So, plants are living things too. So when you mention this to someone, like I've talked to my fiance about it because she used to be a vegan, so I use her as my compass. It's like, point me in the right direction here. How does a vegan deal with this dilemma? And she always has trouble with it. And I'm sure she doesn't represent the whole community. I know. I'm sure there are some who have answers for it. But I don't bring this up. I don't talk about plants having feelings or being a form of life as a way of being like, haha, see there? You should just eat meat because you're still killing them, you dummy. That's not the intention. My overall view, like to summarize where I'm coming from, is I feel like all things are living things. And I feel like humans are okay with eating vegetables and things. And now I'm not talking about fruits like apples that fall off the tree or something that grows off of a vine and drops off. Like, obviously, there's not much of a moral dilemma with consuming something that actually comes off of the living thing and then therefore will then just rot. I'm mostly talking about the actual plants that you have to kill. You have to uproot them or cut them off or whatever it is you have to do in order to harvest them and then consume them. There is this dilemma that a lot of people don't seem to discuss that much that I've seen. I will not say that I've thoroughly researched this or anything. It's just in my personal experience, I haven't seen it come up a lot. That you are killing something. And there are studies, there are things that have come out that show that plants react to things. They actually react to sounds. There's a plant that produces like this serum that kills caterpillars, and they played the sound of a caterpillar chewing near it, and it started, what would you call it? They started pushing out the serum. I can't think of the word. So there is an element to plant life that is very much lifelike. And I'm not saying it's on the same level as animal life or human life, but the point is that it's all life. Like, everything is living. And just because we don't identify with a certain type of life, like we don't identify with plants as much as we do animals, and we obviously don't identify with animals as much as we do humans, unless apparently you're vegan and then you just become completely anti-human. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that just because we don't identify with a certain type of life doesn't mean that it's a lesser life. I think we're all, to get new age hippie-ish on you, we're all kind of part of the same system. It's all connected. And to say that one thing is a lesser evil than another thing, I feel like is kind of an absurd concept if you look at the big picture in the grand scheme of things, if that makes sense. I feel like what it is like, as humans, we identify with features like having a face, with having eyes and a nose and a personality. And one of the arguments they use about pigs, especially in regards to this video and what the Hodge Twins mentioned, is that pigs can actually be about like a dog. Sometimes I think even smarter than a dog, from one thing I heard. I don't know if that's true. But it's like, well, pigs, they could be just like dogs, and I've been eating bacon my whole life. That makes me feel horrible. And there again, like, you're basing the value of life based on the type of life that it is, not the fact that it's life, period. And, I don't know how many people really care about this type of stuff, but if you look in the Bible's, that's why, like, certain beliefs, like, Jewish people, I think even Muslims, they don't eat pork. And even in the Bible, it says not to eat pork based on the parameters given for what's clean and unclean and things like that. So if people followed these old traditions that everyone condemns as being outdated and whatnot, no one would be eating pork anyway. So these poor pigs that are like dogs wouldn't be getting consumed to begin with, which is kind of ironic. But there are also, hang on, there are also countries that still eat dogs and cats. And, I saw a video of a guy talking about these things and talking about like having auras and vibrations and stuff. I don't know if I believe in that, like higher and lower vibrations, and the higher you get, you become in your vibrations to your higher self and things like that, then the less people tend to generally want to eat meat. Well, a lot of weird stuff. I don't know if I believe in that, but, anyway, I guess that is to say if you live in a country where all these things are accepted, then you're just going to be a lower vibration person and prone to negative things and misdeeds. I don't know. But I'm oversimplifying it. I'm not trying to judge that view per se. I really don't understand how it applies to all these things. In any case, really, like I said, the point that I am trying to make is I feel like people respond emotionally to this stuff. Not that I don't. Like, I find it repulsive too, but I try not to just let my emotions carry me away into a sea of vast emotion land where I can't do anything without feeling horrible about it. So the point, again, that I'm trying to make is that I think all life is just that. It's life. And to qualify life based on the state that it's in or the type of life that it is leads us, I think, to these types of discussions where we don't know really what's right and what's wrong. Like, well, it's okay to end this kind of life, but not that kind of life. And the whole idea, somebody might bring up, well, what about human life? If it's okay to kill animals, if all life is the same, then why don't we just kill humans? Or what if somebody goes, like, this is actually an argument that I read on a blog, is that when you start qualifying these things as all the same, then what happens when a person goes to court for stabbing someone and they say, well, it's no different than stabbing an apple, it's all the same. Well, that's kind of where I think the human intellect comes into play and says, well, humans, first of all, aren't food. So if you stab an apple, it's generally not just to stab it. But I mean, if you did, once again, like, it is something that people kill all the time. It gets consumed. Like, everything dies in some way. And as humans, we do set up laws and rules for things. We're not barbaric, not all of us anyway. And we do try to set up rules for things. And that's why you have like animal rights and protection and things, because we believe that it should be a certain way and not done inhumanely and things like that. But that's the point. Things that are inhumane. And people are trying to make it so that eating meat, period, is inhumane, instead of saying that we use all these methods to prepare meat and to raise livestock. And it's a whole nother issue. I'm stumbling over my words. It's a whole nother issue with environmentalism and agriculture. We're supposedly tearing down rainforests in order to grow grain in order to feed all these animals. So it's an environmental issue. It's a morality issue. It's a human issue. It's an animal rights issue. And I don't think it's always a simple answer. Now, I understand, if you're trying to balance the equation, right? If you know that most people are going to continue eating meat, then you stopping eating meat is helping to balance the scales. I get that. But at the same time, like, what really bothers me is that people don't seem to just leave it there. They become militant about it. There's this idea, this personality trait that seems to come with vegans where they become very militant and very anti-human against meat eaters because of the fact that they eat meat and whatnot. And they don't seem to look at it as this harmonious endeavor of life that applies to everyone. And I think that's really what bothers me the most about it. I probably said that already, but it's just the fact that everything is life. Plants are life, animals are life, humans are life. I mean, even the earth, the rocks and everything, it's all life. And you have to accept that life is built upon death, as odd as that sounds. Like, everything has to consume something in order to live. And whether you're consuming plants or animals or some kind of chemical concoction, you're transforming the nature of something into something else in order to sustain your own life. And that's the point of survival. That's life. Again, that's what it is. And people seem to think that they can come up to some like higher morality that transcends that. And to me, that's what's anti-human. It's suggesting that you're above survival, like you're above being able to, you're above having to do things that affect the planet and above having to do things that affect animals and plant life in general, and that you no longer have to have any kind of footprint. And that's just, to me, that's an unnatural idea. Well, I said that weird. Unnatural idea to have to say that I don't have to do any of these horrible things in order to live. Like, it's kind of absurd. It's not even reality to think that you can have that little of an impact, because that's what life is. Death breeds more life. That's why when a forest catches on fire, it actually produces more in the what I can't talk now. What happens afterwards? The forest flourishes from that death, from that tragedy, you might say. And that's the thing, is we call that tragedy, but I call it life. Like, that's just nature taking course. Now, I'm not saying that animals shouldn't be treated better. That's what I was trying to get to earlier until I got off on this dissertation, I guess, is that it's not about what you eat or how you eat it or whatever. It's about how we go about preparing that stuff. I think that people eat too much meat. I think that animals are not treated well while they're alive, and I think they're not harvested, the nice word they like to use. It basically, when they're killed, I don't think it's always done the way it should be. And I feel like people should probably eat more plants and things, but I don't feel like 100% that people should stop eating meat. I just think that meat has become too much of a primary element in a lot of people's diets, and we need to get back to balance. That's the point. That's life. Like, that's what life is balance. And that's where the problem, I believe, has arisen. What word did I just use? It's basically cropped up in that we have unbalanced our diets. We eat too much meat. Other people are saying, well, only eat plants then. And it's these extremes, and everybody just needs to kind of come back to the middle, right? Does that make sense? That's, I think, the ultimate goal is you want people to have more balanced diets, and those who are going to deal with animals, who are going to kill them. Like, that's another thing a lot of vegans use, is like, if I couldn't do it myself, then I can't do it at all. I don't think I could let someone else do it for me if I'm not willing to do it myself, referring to farming and killing animals, right? But maybe not exactly the same thing, but, I wouldn't want to perform surgery. Does that mean it's bad or immoral for me to pay someone else to do it? Like, if you didn't grow up around something, especially when it comes to killing something, if you didn't grow up hunting or farming or whatever, then of course you're not going to feel comfortable with that kind of stuff, because that's a very icky part of life. But generally, anyone has picked a flower or come across a vegetable, and you can break them open and see their juices come out, but we don't see that juice as blood, even though that's technically what it is to the plant. Forgive me if that's not scientific, but I mean, if you think about it, water and whatnot that plants soak up, it soaks up nutrients. And what does your blood do? It carries nutrients around. So we don't equate those things. Equate them. God, why do I keep skipping over words? Anyway, because we don't equate those things, I think that's what affords us this idea that we can abstain from something. We can abstain from destruction. And I don't know how many vegans out there don't have their houses sprayed for pests. I don't know how many vegans abstain from driving because they might accidentally run over an animal or something. This whole idea of cruelty-free, to me, is a unrealistic concept, because you just literally, like I said, you cannot live in the world without having an impact. And I understand trying to make up for that impact, but also I think it's a balance. You have to live, you have to die, and it's all full circle. And trying to get on one side, like, you can't just kill everything, but I also don't think you can get on the other side and just let everything completely live, because that's what survival, that's what life is, that's nature, that's the balance of things. And people become separated from that when they don't have to do it themselves. Like, if you can't kill an animal, you can't butcher it, then you feel like, well, if I can't do it, I just feel like it's immoral. I couldn't pay someone else to do it. But someone else who grew up in it, someone who's used to it, it's not the same to them. So making it a concept of morality, I think, is a play on emotions that affects reasonable and logical thinking. Now, I could probably summarize that a lot better or whatever, but this is just kind of my train of thought, trying to remember to cover everything. And yeah, so that's it. That's my feelings on that. Too long didn't read is basically just, I think life is a balance of life and death, and it's unfortunate, and we become detached from it, and we view it as this tragedy and this horrible thing that shouldn't happen, but in reality, I think it's actually a necessity. And so, on to our next topic. So our third and final topic for the day is going to be about something that's even more controversial than what I just discussed about vegans. Gun control. Now, there's been a lot of talk of gun control lately, especially with the shootings and the terrorist attacks and things. And that's like a whole nother topic to get into in itself. I don't really know how to cover that right now, and I'm trying to keep this short if I can. But people seem to think that when something happens, that there's always a really clear and easy solution to it, especially with issues of society and whatnot. And I'm not really the type of person to say like, oh, I'm on the right, or oh, I'm on the left, or oh, I'm Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal. I don't really subscribe to any of those ideas. If anything, I would say I probably do lean more to the right, quote unquote, than the left. But I'm just going to use those terms to describe things and to suggest where something's coming from. It doesn't necessarily mean that I believe in those terms. So generally, when it comes to gun control, from the left, you get this idea of that the guns are the problem. If people didn't get guns, then they wouldn't be able to do these horrible things. And not necessarily like a lot of people on the left, I think, do want to get rid of guns, like period. But right now they're not using that logic. They're just saying these weapons of mass destruction or mass killing or whatever. If you got rid of them, then we could really curb this. And if you saw on the news, which I don't know how you wouldn't have, but the recent San Bernardino, that is such a hard name to pronounce. I don't know why I keep getting hung up on it, and I feel weird every time I say it because I feel like I'm saying it wrong. But if you saw that, then there was a woman, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to say who she was. I think they said she was the governor of California, but you know what? I really have no idea who the governor of California is, so I could be completely wrong there. So let's just leave it with some woman who's in the government or some kind of authority position in California. She came out and said that gun control in California is working, and this is not verbatim. This is just basically based on what I remember her saying. Gun control is working, and that the rest of the country needs to catch up, because that's basically, I guess she was saying, that's why it happened, is because California has gun control, the rest of the country doesn't. So that freedom that they have to cross into the California border is what allowed this to happen, I guess. That's what she didn't say that in particular, like specifically, but she alluded to that. I mean, I don't know what else she could have meant by it. And then she said that, because California gun control is working, she illustrated that they have like 50% less gun crime or something like that. But that's kind of a tricky word. That's one of the things that I feel like a lot of people, quote unquote, on the left do, is they use these terms. Gun crime is down. They don't say whether or not crime is down. They don't say whether or not gun crime is down, but knife crime is up. They just say gun crime is down, and they use that very isolated statistic to prove their point. And I'm not saying that it can be debunked. I'm not saying maybe crime overall has gone down or something. And it is related to that. Like, you have to prove that as well, that it is related to the fact that their gun laws are stricter, and that's what has definitely and unarguably, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what I'm saying. Basically, you can't disprove that is what the correlation is. Sorry for my limited vocabulary. But that's what she tried to say. And then later on, it came out that the guns they use, especially the assault rifles, which is, that's the one that everyone wants to get a hold of. That's the one that everyone is against, is the assault rifles. They were bought legally in California. From what I heard, that's what was said. They were bought legally in California, but they were illegally modified, supposedly. That was the story that I heard in multiple outlets, so I'm going to assume that that's probably true. So if that's the case, then she jumped the gun, and it's not true. Jump the gun, that was a good term right there. I like that little spin of... anyway, that's proof that her statements are completely false. She went ahead and said that stuff as if the guns had been purchased somewhere else and brought into California to perform these acts, when in reality, they were supposedly purchased in California and illegally modified. And that's the issue with gun control. Illegally obtained or illegally modified, illegally transported, illegally owned. Gun laws don't stop people from getting guns, right? So it's pretty simple logic. I don't understand why this needs to be explained, right? You have laws. Murder is illegal. Rape is illegal. Drugs are illegal. All of these things happen anyway. You're not even supposed to be able to travel with drugs in your car. In some states, you can't have a loaded gun in your car, right? But if they can't stop it from happening with drugs, how can they stop it from happening with guns exactly? Now, I do know those are two different things. Drugs, you can, like especially marijuana, you can grow on your own. Not many people are able to create their own gun, even though it is possible, especially now with 3D printing and whatnot. I heard that somebody actually 3D printed their own rifle or something of some sort. So as technology progresses, I think it becomes even harder to control these things without the government impeding on people's rights even more so and getting more into your personal life. So this idea that you can make a law and it stops something is proven time and time again that it doesn't work. Now, I don't disagree with the idea that guns are used for bad and it would be nice to get rid of them and have the problem go away. Now, I'm someone who grew up around guns. I own a couple myself. And even then, I don't have that much experience with them, but I've handled them on and off throughout my life and used them. And they still scare me. Like, I'm still very respectful of firearms and how dangerous they are and how they can be misused and how easily it is to make a mistake with them if you're not careful. And even then, I still think people should be able to have them if they want to. I understand this idea. I understand it's, like, again, I think similar to the vegan thing, I think it's an emotional reaction that people use that overrides their logic because they want the better outcome. They want to be able to stop these bad things from happening. And if only it were as simple as just getting rid of these things, then life would just be 100-fold better. Everything would just improve. And we wouldn't have this violence anymore. We wouldn't have this. And they're just, to me, they're ignoring that it's human nature. Violence is human nature. I don't really believe in all these ideas of human progress and that violence is something that's 100% learned. Even if it is, though, we don't live in a world that has conquered that yet. We don't live in a world where people don't want to kill each other. So these ideas and these proposed laws are based on ideas that we don't live in. It's based on a reality that hasn't come to fruition yet. Maybe one day it will, but so far, I don't think it has. And they want to make these laws based on this utopic idea, and it just doesn't correlate or correspond or relate or jive with reality as it stands today. And even I recognize that this idea that, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I understand how barbaric that sounds. It sounds like, well, geez, you guys are just all crazy. You don't even, if you just got rid of guns, you wouldn't have problems. I understand that it sounds crazy, but I think for lack of a better solution, that is the more realistic answer at this point in time. A lot of people want to cite countries like the UK or whatever. Now, I'm horrible at geography, so if I get terms mixed up, like countries and continents and cities and towns and states, whatever, I'm sorry, but I'm not good at geography. I need to try to brush up on it. But there are places in the world where they have strict gun laws. You're not allowed to own a gun, period, or without very limited permitting. And a lot of these places are supposedly known for having other types of violence escalating instead of guns. Like every time you hear about something in the UK, it's either illegally owned guns, which is, I guess, relatively rare, but more particularly, it's knives or machetes or something. And, realistically, you can't ban knives and stuff, so there's no discussion on, well, what do we do about all this knife crime? They just treat it as crime committed by humans. But for some reason, when someone uses a gun, then it's gun crime and something that was done with a gun. And people can't be trusted to own and use guns in a safe way. And yet at the same time, there's not much of a vetting process for people getting a driver's license. And when someone has an accident with a gun and it kills someone or injures someone, then, oh my God, we need gun control. Like, children shouldn't be allowed to get guns, all this stuff, right? Like, that's perfectly understandable logic. Like, you don't want these bad things to happen. People need to be responsible with it. But you have car accidents happening every day. I haven't looked up the statistics, but anecdotally, I would say probably more than gun accidents happen. And nobody's talking about what we need to do to reform our driving license permittance, or whatever you want to call it, right? Like, no one's talking about how to reduce the number of driving accidents we have other than awareness. But when somebody commits an act or has an accident with a gun, then suddenly the gun is the issue and not the person. So by that logic, why don't we have the car be the issue and not the person? Why do we call car accidents and let the person walk away from it as unless they killed someone? And then they might get into trouble if they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing. But if you have a gun and it goes off and kills someone unintentionally, then you're held responsible. I don't think you walk away from that. But if you get into an accident and there's no actual activity that you were doing that caused it per se, it was just an accident and somebody died in it, then generally I think people can walk away from that and be scarred for the rest of their life that they got in an accident and it killed somebody. But I don't think, based on what I've heard, I don't think guns are treated the same way. There is no accident with a gun that you walk away from. You're always held accountable for it. So that is to say, I think people pick and choose because of things that they feel are unnecessary or just something that's kind of been demonized. Like, it's almost an indoctrination that this thing is bad and that people don't need it or whatever. And so when something happens about it, it sticks out in your mind like a trauma that has happened. And people aren't held to be more responsible. They just call for the government to get involved in your life and take these things from you. Now, that's one of the things that I think happens a lot with, one sec. All right, I got interrupted there, so I don't know exactly where I left off, but, I think I know it. So the point I'm basically trying to make here is that people look to the government almost like a parent. And I feel like that's a very wrong foot to get off on when it comes to dealing with the government. People treat it like as if they're toddlers. People infantize themselves when it comes to issues they don't like. So if you have a little kid, you have a toddler, and their sibling or their friend or whatever picks up something and hits them with it, they go to mommy and they go, Mommy, he hit me with this thing, and mommy takes the thing away and gets on to him, right? She says, no, we don't do that. We don't hit. And that's what the government is trying to do with people. And there are people who run to the government, hey, government, as they call it, nanny state or whatever. They shot me with this gun, and they want the government to take away the gun and shake their finger in their face and tell them no. And that's really not how adults should handle their problems, right? Would anyone agree that adults should be like children running to a guardian to tell them what happened to them? Like as an adult, you have the ability to take responsibility for yourself and your actions and to react in an intelligent manner to what other people do. And as they say, you can't change how other people act. You can only change how you react. And instead of having something happen and expecting the government to keep you safe and charging the government with your own personal safety, why don't you take responsibility for it yourself? And that's where the idea comes from of the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Because as an adult, you don't run to the government or to law enforcement to settle your disputes for you in every instance. Now, I'm not saying that you should take it upon yourself to administer justice to all the wrongdoers out there. Obviously, that's not a very good idea under the current climate of our society. But I also think you shouldn't go too far the other way. Once again, back to balance. You shouldn't expect the government to do everything for you just because you're offended by something or just because something seems bad to you or whatever. It's your responsibility to protect yourself against those things. That's the cost of freedom. Aside from the actual military life costs of freedom, fighting for it, as a member of a free society, freedom means taking responsibility for yourself and doing what's right for you and your family and not expecting the government to cater to every whim, right? I mean, is that not how it should be as an adult, where you take responsibility for yourself, for your own safety? Do you need the government to tell you to buckle up when you're in your car? How is that even a thing? Why is it the government can make it illegal to not wear your seatbelt? You can get a ticket for that when that's your own personal safety. And you might say, I don't really know what the argument is for that. There probably is one. I haven't looked into it. But one that I can think of is projectiles. You know, they don't want your body to become a projectile flying out of your car when you come to a sudden stop in a crash. But if that's the case, then there would be seatbelts in buses. There would be seatbelts on motorcycles. But those, you can't, like, those don't happen. And on a motorcycle, I don't really think it would be smart to have one. So there's a point, I think, where the government has taken over for personal safety where it shouldn't be. The government getting way too involved with people's lives. And when you call for gun control, when you call for a ban on something, that can be used well, and it's just the minority of people who are doing wrong with it. And I do believe it is the minority, because there's supposedly like 300 million gun owners. If every one of them were committing horrible acts, then our country literally would be like a wasteland. There would be things happening everywhere in mass, and no one would ever feel safe. And I feel like this whole idea of mass shootings and guns being all this stuff is kind of an exaggeration, because it's kind of in isolated areas. You can say that the U.S. has so many gun crimes every year, but is it broken down into states, into towns, into neighborhoods? Because certain ones may be making up most of that statistic, where other ones may not be hardly having any issues, right? Because a lot of these mass shootings, as they say, which is another point they bring up, happen in gun-free zones. So saying the guns aren't allowed somewhere, whether it's in a school or in a state or a town or a country, it doesn't mean that someone's not going to stroll on in with one. Drugs are the best example of this, because they can't even keep drugs out of prisons, right? Bad things happen in prison. Prison is where you go when you do something wrong, and yet everything that they can do on the outside is still done in prison. There's no way to take away the human element unless you just kill everybody, right? Is that not a reality that we live in? So basically what I'm saying is, when you run to the government and say, hey, take these guns away, man, they're hurting people, it's bad, and I don't like it. What you're saying is, hey, you can take my rights away too. When someone else has a problem with something that I like and that I am responsible with and I don't do anything wrong with, but somebody else says, hey, you know a guy who did horrible things with that and they want it taken away from me, well, you can do that too, because when I asked you for something and you did it, I gave you the right to take away everything. And people don't want to believe that, I guess. They think that's kind of a paranoid, schizophrenic concept of the government. But, I mean, really? Like, again, when you have toddlers, if both of you are given a toy and one of you gets hit by it and you start screaming, "Mommy took it, hit me with it." And what does she do a lot of times? Or what does the parent do? I'm saying she, but it could be the dad. It could be the aunt, the uncle, whatever. They go, "Well, give them both here. If you can't be peaceful with it, then neither of you can have it," right? I'm sure you've heard of that happening or seen it happen or had it happen to you. Do you think the government is much different? Do you think when you treat the government as your guardian, your nanny, your parent, that they're not going to do the same thing when they see that people can't play peacefully with their toys? Just because you have a disposition about something doesn't mean that you have the right to want to take it from someone else. And the same goes for them. If they have a negative disposition about something that you do, doesn't mean that they should be able to petition the government to take it away from you. If you are a law-abiding citizen and you're not doing anything wrong, just because someone else did wrong with it doesn't mean that you should be held accountable for their actions. And that is the fundamental flaw with gun control, in my opinion. Those are just my thoughts. Once again, all of this has pretty much been said by other people who are far more competent and eloquent than I, but I just wanted to give it a shot. If you guys like this, if you want to see more or hear more or whatever, then let me know, and maybe I'll continue to do it. But this was really just a trial run of trying to do something in a way that maybe is repeatable, something I will be interested in continuing to do and maybe not just fall off the map like my previous attempts. So, if you want to hear more, then I would be glad to take your thoughts into consideration and maybe continue with this as a series or something. Otherwise, if you made it this far, man, you are a trooper. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next, whatever this is, video, podcast, something, whatever it is. All right, bye.